Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar API Development Made Simple. Today, in cooperation with Codecentric and the IONOS Cloud, we would like to present you our GitLab as a service or GitLab AAS service, and then go back to the exciting topic of API deployment and management in particular. My name is Daniel. I'm from the IONOS Cloud team, and my colleagues Oli Moser and Daniel Kokot from the Codecentric are in the webinar. You are very welcome to ask your questions during the webinar. We had a chat function in English, German, whatever you want, and we will respond to them during the Q&A session afterwards. We also have technical support from our professional services team in person of Tim Robert in the call. And now enjoy the webinar. I hope you can learn something, and so I hand over to Oli, and we are available for questions after the webinar as mentioned. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Hi, I'm Oli Moser. I'm working in the IT business since more than 20 years. I'm with Codecentric since more than 6 years now, and today I want to give you a short introduction of our new service, which is GitLab as a service, which we developed together with IONOS and GitLab. And yeah, slide please. In the first step, or in the beginning, let's take a look at software development cycles. As you might all know, developing software can become really complex and require hundreds of steps and many tools that need to work together. And you also have multiple teams with different needs, like your business, your developer teams, your operations teams, your security teams, and so on. And in your software development cycle, you start with planning your software, what kind of features you actually want to ship, what kind of bugs you actually want to fix, and then you start writing code. You create code, you push it to repositories, you do some versioning, and then you do some testing and verifying. You do unit tests and load tests and all kind of testing. Then you package your software, you maybe push it to Docker repositories. Then you do some release management and dependency management, and plan what kind of features you push to your environments. You need to do configuration management and a lot of steps to actually bring a feature that you want to ship to production. So it's really necessary that all of your tools and teams can work together seamlessly. So slide please. Click. So at this part of the presentation, I want to ask you, what kind of tool chains are you using? How many tools do you need to bring a feature to production? Are you actually maybe already using GitLab for your software development? And yeah, I want to kindly ask you to just post your comments in the chat, and then we can maybe take a look at it later. Slide, please. So with all that said, we want to announce that we developed GitLab as a service. So GitLab is, as it calls itself, the one DevOps platform. And we as Codecentric, we really believe in GitLab because we are using it in hundreds of customer projects for many years now, and we can really recommend it. And we really think that this is a good product. And yeah, for that reason, we developed it as a service together with GitLab and IONOS. We are partner of GitLab and IONOS. And altogether, we can offer you dedicated, highly available and scalable GitLab instances in your IONOS cloud environment. And in that environment, we take care of all of the operations and monitoring, updating and patching and automatic backup tasks. And yeah, your data is hosted in data centers. Especially for our German customers, we can really make sure that all of your data stays in German data centers and in Europe. Slide, please. Oh, click again. Yeah, and so with that DevOps platform, we can really help you to deliver more quality in less time and focus help your teams focus on your business values. And yeah, with that said, I want to hand over to Daniel, who will show you a use case, how you can use GitLab to deploy APIs.
Thanks, Ollie. So I just switched the slide deck actually, and we move on talking about API deployments made simple. So my name is Daniel Kotzert. I'm working for Codecentric as a senior solution architect and head of API experience and operations. So I'm doing a lot of work actually with APIs, helping customers to understand what is an API and to really maintain, that's an old term actually, and what it meant for the new things we do with APIs actually. So now we head into to really think about API deployments. And the first question is how we can deploy or start deploying an API. At first, we really have to think about deployment steps actually. So at the first side, we need to bundle an API definition normally, because we write an API definition or create an API definition with reference in it, because we're using things relative to a design library or something like that, so that we have elements available that somebody else can also use to make it quite easy to develop or create an API definition. To do this, it's quite an easy step. So we just use a CLE tool called Redoctly CLE, formerly known as OpenAPI CLE actually. And with this tool, we are able to bundle specifications or definitions. And in this case, we just have a definition stated and saying, okay, this is the one with reference in it. And for the further ongoing steps, we need really to bundle the thing. So in the end, we get a new definition with all the elements in the definition. So there are no references, just the references within the document actually. So there are non-external references. When we have bundled the definition, we now have the time to do something called linting or validating to really make sure and understand if this is a good API. Good API means that this API really has the quality we want to establish as an organization to present it to the outside world actually. So in this case, this linting helps us to see if our definition is good in this case. And with Redoctly, we can also do things like having stats to really see what is happening inside the definition, seeing how many references we have in there, these internal ones, how many external documents are named, and all the stuff really available actually. And with this linting part, we are able to lint this one. In this case, we just lint against the OpenAPI specification standard. And on the lower part of the slide, you see that we have another linter available. It's called Spectral CLE. In this case, we use the two of them because Redoctly is more closely to the definition of the standard definition of OpenAPI specification. So with Spectral, we will miss some things we need for the standardization of the OpenAPI definition standard actually. And with using Spectral, we have the possibility to really easily build rule sets. This is what we do actually a lot at customers, to really think about the rule sets actually needed to obtain all the things written down in an API guideline actually. So this is the part where we step in to really make sure that we have this linting definition so far available. And there we have this rule set we use in a context with customers actually with Spectral. We use Spectral rule set more than having this with Redoctly, because Redoctly is a little bit more complicated to really extend rules available with these rule sets actually than in Spectral. And you can see here that it's just really simple one, having semantic versioning. In this case, thinking about snake case for properties and all the stuff. So this is what we really test against or lint or validate against and really make sure that everything is in the state we would like to have it. So it really depends on the API guidelines somebody has evolved over time. Mostly at customers, we see something like copied API guidelines from Zalando because they are a long-standing available, but to be honest, that's not the best thing to do actually, to just copy something from somebody else, because everybody has different needs towards these APIs we have with digital products actually. So this is something you have to be very careful with and really focus on what is what is needed. We had seen with customers also that it's possible to just have this rule set and no API guidelines available. That's really interesting to see that you just have this rule sets, even for spectral or reductly, and you're able to really obtain your API guidelines in this way. So with this, we are really able to do things. We have the spectral rule set under version control all the time, so we are really able to make sure that this rule set fits to 100% to the API guidelines actually. By having now linted or validated the API definition, we are now able to test it. With the testing, we do some things up front, because when we are on a dev stage, the API definition will not be really available. So what we have to do is to really make sure that there is some mock server available. In this case, it's Prism, also coming from Stoplight, as Spectral also comes from. And with this mocked API, we are able to test it actually. And for test purposes, we use, in this case, a tool called Portman. With Portman, we are able to really make testing quite smooth and nearly easy actually for everybody to test an API. You can see it here right in the spot of the code we see here for testing purposes. It's just this one line of code actually, two line of codes to really make sure that we can test something locally. So when we think about API testing, we have to think about nearly 3 test types. There are some more actually, but we focus now on the 3 test types, so with contract, content, and variation. And for having this tool called Portman available, we are able to configure our tests. So we don't have to write nothing or anything down actually, as we saw it with different other tools available in the market to have something like Mocher or anything else available as a behavior-driven framework or something like that. So in this case, having Portman, we only do test configuration. So we are able to write a YAML file and having this type of thing, or put it into a JSON file actually, and then also have reference available. So regard to the contract testing, we are able to generate a postman collection after validating the contract. So when we do this contract testing with Portman actually, it creates a fully tested postman collection for us. So we are able to share our API for testing purposes as a postman collection actually. Within the contact testing, we are able to test validation of response values. In the variation testing, we are able to test the contract not only with the happy path, so to see what will happen as a success, we are able to test the unhappy path, which makes it more easy to understand how an API actually works, to really make sure that we also see the expected error responses so far. So this is very important to think about, not to test just a happy path because it's working or giving something back in a positive way, also to think about this unhappy path, to really make sure that these responses really match to the expected error responses we get. So this is the most important thing to really think about, is variation testing. And having this just in a configurative style, it is really easy to think about this testing proposals, to really make sure, oh, this is something we want to test. Oh, we just have to configure it by just writing down a specific test, which you can do with all the other tools actually available. But with having Portman beside that, we are quite easy to do this variation test in a very easy and not so handful way to really make sure that we don't have to do a lot of things with the keyboard in touch actually, and write down code, which will change actually a lot. So, and after all these tests will run through, actually, we receive two artifacts in the end. So we have this bundled API definition, which is valid, tested, and we receive this Postman collection in reference to the definition. So in this case, we are really good in having these two artifacts available. And with this, we are really able to share the contract we created actually with anybody else who would like to use it or consume it actually. So we have this definition and we have this Postman collection available. So, and as I said, they are both linted and tested in this way. When we now have these artifacts, we want to deploy them. And the deployment is somehow depending on the deployment target. So what we can do is just push the definition, or this happens quite often actually, we have to convert the API definition to somehow configuration as code somehow. So this is what we have to do actually, convert the definition to configuration as code to make it available for the things where we would like to put the definition on. So we are now in the where. And with the where, we talk about deployable infrastructure based on specification definitions. And in this case, we see components like gateways, portals, hubs, and registries. A gateway, to make it quite short actually, is a component to manage and secure an API. And it's an infrastructure component. When I talk with a lot of people actually around with customers or prospects, everybody's talking about a gateway as a component for the developers. Yeah, and somehow this is also true, but it's a pure infrastructure component. So it has to do a lot with infrastructure given to the developers actually. So it's really hard, and it's actually good to think it's a hard infrastructure component, nothing more. So it's nothing a developer has to handle. So it's really about the infrastructure part of it. And gateway is normally highly configurable. And it should be, governed by guidelines and automated deployments actually. So the things we talked earlier about. When we look at a portal, it's something that stands beside the gateway as a separate component. Normally, when you look at the vendor market nowadays, you see a lot of vendors having portals directly available or as an enterprise thing, so that you have to buy a license or something like that. And we can think about to have one portal for several gateways, which could be possible. So normally you just have the idea of having one gateway and one portal. But when you look into reality, there's always to have one portal for several gateways. And configuration of this portal is normally, or should be normally, done by a separate pipeline. So it's not part of this. We provide an API definition pipeline, it's a very separate one to make sure that we just build up the portal, have it available, and then we can put the information of the definitions we would like to put into the portal actually. When we look more deeper into the type of portal, actually, we find something like a hub, which is more on a higher level actually. So we are getting more into a centralized thing actually to really talk about a hub. And in somehow the hub is more an umbrella for complex infrastructures. So not the easiest one you see on POCs or MVPs or something like that. So the really complex ones, having a lot of gateways available from different vendors and all the stuff. So normally you move into this hub thing to really have this umbrella to collect all the data available, all the definitions available, to really present them as a unique platform actually. And when we look at a hub, it's somehow the first step towards an internal developer platform. The thing everybody is talking about something like Backstage, or talking about this platform engineering thing, which comes up quite often now, to really have something for the internal developers to rely on, to have somehow something as the beginning of a golden path, to really say, okay, this is the hub, this is the thing you need to start your journey as a developer within our company, to get information about the services, the APIs available, and all the stuff actually. The registry as the last interface or infrastructure component is nothing more like a storage. So we can store artifacts like the API definitions or schemas or something like that into this registry. So we have the similarity to the schema registry, the things we know when we think about Kafka. So there's a schema registry available. And this is something which comes up even more at the moment. So again, it supports also the idea of this internal developer platform. So the registry could be also part of a hub or part of a portal actually, to really make sure that I have a storage for these definitions I want to store actually, and make them available through an API or something like that, to really make sure that it's an easy access to the things, to the assets, to the artifacts I have, to really make sure that I get into this good developer experience a lot of people are talking about actually. But the registry is a more technical part actually. It's really more technical. So it's really towards the developer, the personas of developers actually, to really have this registry available, where a hub or a portal are more for also the product owners or somebody else interested or stakeholders to really understand what is available as the possibilities of services and APIs in my company actually. So this is what we have to think about. So the registry is really a technical thing. So the thing we need to develop things further on, or find new ways to present digital products to the market or anything like that. So what we've actually talked about is something we call API Ops at Codecentric. So there are a lot of others who talk about API Ops, but what does API Ops really mean? So we have different phases actually. We think about automation all the time because we have this ops in there. So that reminds us of DevOps, and a lot of people think only about automation when you think about DevOps, but that's another type of thing we would not talk about here. So, but what is the part of it is really to think about automation. So we have this design phase, which normally happens locally in somehow on a developer setup, on the own machine, or maybe in the cloud when we have a cloud IDE or something like that. And the first step is to move into the source controlling, to have everything under source control. So every definition or every element needed for an API definition is stored in a source control. Could be GitLab, or anything else. In this case, we have GitLab actually. So that we have GitLab as the source control thing, and we have some CI/CD elements in it. So we do pull requests, we merge, and we use normally command line interfaces to make sure that everything works. So we do the linting, the testing, maybe policy enforcement or something like that in the pipeline. Actually, we don't trust really the developer saying, it's working on my machine and it looks good, so it should working. We really have to think about the CI/CD pipeline process to really make sure that it all is visible and all is transparent to everyone to see, okay, this is a good API. It got through the stages of validating on all the stuff. Because in the end, what we would like to do is to deploy the stuff to the deployable assets we talked before, gateway, portal, and so ever. So this is the API ops we saw now in more detail, but this is just the summary of it to really see what it's all about, to really make sure what we will now see in the context when we use GitLab. When we use GitLab, it normally starts with some stages. In this case, we have a validate stage, we have a build stage, and we will do some publishing. In the validate stage, we do all the things we saw earlier actually. We have this bundling, we have the linting, doing it with both actually, and we have this mock server available for the testing part of Portman actually. And in the end, we see that there we get some artifacts. In this case, these artifacts will expire in 1 week actually. So just for testing purposes, we are able to validate all the things we create actually, or created. So, and this is where we get the artifacts, and it looks, when we look at this GitLab CLE, it looks quite easy just to have the scripted things down. So you see, it's not an easiest part to deploy an API when you really have to think about all the stuff we talked about to have this linting, validating part and testing part. It's nothing which is available out of the box. So we really have to make sure that the things are in good shape and that are good in parts, like with the scripting thing. And from the definition to configuration as code, we have to do some things. In this example, we will use Kong as an API gateway. It's just, for example, purposes to show not the easiest example and saying, you just have to deploy the API definition, everything will work. So that's not the normal stuff actually. So when we have to think about this configuration as code, we really have to look at the infrastructure component and saying, okay, what does the API gateway really needs? What is possible to do so? What can I use? Do I need special tooling around? So in this case, we need a tool called INSO, which is Insomnia CLE actually, or INSO CLE. So we are more in the Kong space actually to really think about. And with this, we are able to create a configuration out of our specification or definition, which also means that we can write more things into our API definition to really make sure that we have all the things available regarding to our deployment target actually. In this case, it's the Kong gateway. So with this, we are able to really move forward and saying, okay, we have to put in things and we generate the Kong configuration and have a tool we have actually to use to put the configuration into the gateway. And by having this, we are able to really adapt the API definition and move it further actually to really think about what can I also put in there. Information in reference to a specific gateway we are using in the case actually. And for this, we can use the so-called Open API extensions. With these extensions, we are able to really configure or write configuration to the API definition to make sure that everything can be configured with properties actually from the API definition, so that we can configure the endpoints in reference to the API gateway, so that we can configure plugins, add-ons, whatever they are called actually, to do rate limiting and all the stuff. This is possible with such a step to really make sure that we have this configuration as code available. And having this configuration as code available, we are able to publish the specification, or saying better, to really send the configuration to the API gateway. And for this case, in the context of Kong, we need another tool actually. It's called DAG. And with DAG, we can do several things. You can see here on the slide. I won't go there into details actually, because it's very good described in this on the slide. And with this configuration, with this syncing of configuration, we are now able to really roll out the configuration. In this case, it's the easiest one. We just roll out the configuration, but we don't think about to roll out the whole infrastructure. So in this case, we just have the rollout of the definition of the API definition. So we create a definition towards the API gateway, but it could be also possible to have this configuration and really push a so-called micro gateway up front and saying, okay, we create a micro gateway based on the definition or on the specification we have here. So this is also possible, but in this case, what we have here, it's the easiest part to actually do things. And having the configuration done towards the API gateway for the API we want to provide over the API gateway, we are now also able to push the definition towards a portal, which is what we do not in this case, because in this, what we see here is just we just make sure that a portal is available. So that's the thing you have to do. So you have to check, oh, it's really configured in the right way, or do we need something to do actually? So when all these steps are done, so we validate the specification, we have ensured that the developer portal is enabled, we now can really push the definition towards the portal. So that's been available to be presented to the world or the developer community actually, to make sure that everybody could use the API that's been made available towards the API gateway actually. We do here several things because of the tooling we have, so that we can upload a thing. So you see it's a little bit complex in this case, but that's the normal stuff actually. So everything we do with gateways in this context actually, it's always has to be done by writing a lot of scripting nowadays, because there is no standardization available towards all type of gateways available. And we have to make clear that for now there are nearly 65 vendors in the market with different types of solutions where we are able to use an API gateway. So we have a lot of tooling available, but we don't have any standardization, because we have standards for writing an API definition, but we don't have a standardization for really having a deployment with this API ops thing actually. So everybody has to really look up what they are using in the team and really find a way. And something like GitLab as as a platform actually for the whole developer processes in regards of software development can help a lot actually. Just to make sure that I just have to configure something like that and make it available as a template so everybody on the teams in the organization can use this and don't have to think about actually how do I do a rollout or something like that, because this is something that has to come from a centralized type of thing. So that there must be a center of enablement or something like that to really make sure that there is somebody who really has the knowledge about all the things available, because in normal setups we don't find not only one API gateway, we find even more. Looking at actual customers we have at Codecentric, we have 7 or more available actually, and you really have to think about what are the use cases, why they are there, and all the stuff. So it's really important to really that you have to think about the deployment process all the time. It's not the easiest part. It's not having just one, because somebody will take something different from the things available actually, and then there is a lot of things actually happening, and every tool in somehow works different when they are not using a standard to just upload a specification and the rest then is done. So if we have this configuration as code, actually it's getting complicated. But having these things like GitLab with GitLab CI, it's really easy to obtain the things, control the things, and really make it easy for others to use it, because you have one thing to do only one time actually, and then just have a template for it and replace it all the time. If you're interested in more things about API deployments and all the stuff involved, API experience and so on, you find a lot of blog posts actually I have written on the Codecentric blog and on Medium and so on. So you find a lot of me when you just have a look at the internet actually, and there you find a lot of information. You find also some things when you are a German listener to this webinar. You find a lot of things in our software regarding the topic, and this is what you can find there actually. So now we can switch to the Q&A. So Daniel, are you available?
Right, I'm here. Thank you very much, Daniel. It was very interesting. As mentioned, now we have scheduled time to answer your questions. Feel free to ask. We have the specialists on the call now, and let me pick the first and the most common question. Of course, you will receive the information and the link to the recording of the webinar via email in the next days, for sure. And then we have some other questions. I think these 2 questions will be for Daniel. The first one is, where is the pipeline running?
It's normally running when we do the templating in the full way actually in one repository, and it's just referenced to the other ones actually. So we have one repository which can be referenced to others actually, so that I don't have to maintain a pipeline in every repro I have for an API. So we just can use this templating type of thing to really make sure that we just write one pipeline and everybody can use it just by referencing to it.
Okay. And then the next question will be, what is about testing with CRUD, C-R-U-D, context and initializing databases?
That's a really interesting question, because in the context I work with APIs, we don't do real CRUD APIs. Really focusing on this product-based attempt actually, or approach, that we don't think about CRUD things. because having a CRUD API is not a really good product actually towards the market. So if I just have a simple CRUD API, it's still the same to just test the things in reference. Yeah, and having this database be behind the things, it's more something to do, yeah, with data validation. So this is normally not part of API testing actually. It's I think a difficult question to really have this testing within an API testing pipeline actually, because it's going deeper actually. I wouldn't place it into such a pipeline. It's into such a pipeline actually. It's a different one, more related to creating data actually.
Okay. Hope this answer will be helpful. If you are welcome to send us questions afterwards, after the webinar, of course. So my last question to my colleagues, would you like to say something else on this topic? Is there anything we missed here? If not, so then I hope you enjoyed the webinar. You took something away, and we are always available for questions and support around about GitLab as a service and the API management. So I would like to thank you on behalf of my colleagues from the Codecentric and from the IONOS team, and wish you a nice evening. So thank you very much.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.